Thank you for choosing the Saturn Overdrive by Advanced Adapters. Upon receiving your Overdrive unit and unpacking, you will find your manual. Attached to the front of the manual is a bag that contains a special lock washer, snap ring, and oil scoop. Inside your manual, you will find your warranty information and a gasket. Also very important that upon unwrapping the case, do not remove the plastic tubing and cotter pin from this unit. You will be instructed later when to remove these. Removing now may result in severe damage to the overdrive. Also check the brass synchro ring to make sure it is in place. It has been packed with grease to prevent it from falling out of position during shipping and assembly. If it is not in place, make sure these notches are on the dogs and put back in place. Now we are ready to begin the installation procedure as outlined in your manual. Drain and flush transfer case before starting with installation. Put transmission into reverse gear and set handbrake. Remove shift knob, floor mat, and transmission floor plate. Step 3. Remove the rear cover plate or PTO unit and clean all surfaces of gasket material and burrs. Using a socket wrench, remove the retaining nut that holds the stock drive gear in place. Then remove the main drive gear. Make sure the new planetary gear assembly has the same number of exterior and interior teeth as the drive gear you have just removed. Then check the transmission main shaft for in play and the transfer case intermediate gear assembly. Replace any worn bearings and inspect the transmission rear output shaft bearing, replacing if necessary. If you are installing model number 915674 overdrive unit, be certain that the spacer between the transmission output bearing and the main drive gear is not removed. This spacer is only on the T14 3-speed transmission. Step 4. Install the planetary gear assembly into the transmission main shaft. Using a 1/2 inch socket drive, tighten the drive nut to 100 to 120 foot-pounds torque. Now install the special lock washer. This lock washer prevents the drive nut from loosening. To retain the lock washer, we have also provided a square snap ring that fits into the snap ring groove inside this planetary assembly. These items must be installed to prevent premature failure of this unit. To install the snap ring, use snap ring or needle nose pliers. Compress the ring until the two ears touch. If compressed beyond this point, the ring will collapse and will not be suitable for use. After installing, double check and make sure the retaining ring is properly seated in its groove. Note, if the snap ring is not properly seated in its groove, the planetary unit will eventually work loose on the main shaft and cause severe damage to the overdrive unit. Step 5. Lift both rear wheels off the ground. Put transmission into neutral, transfer case in gear, and release the handbrake. Then turn the driveline by hand to check for free rotation and run out. If rotation is not free, recheck step 3 and 4. Step 6. Install the oil scoop into the case assembly. Note, be sure the oil scoop is in place. Failure to install this scoop will cause lack of proper oiling and eventual overdrive failure. Step 7. Before assembly, you must verify the proper location of the gear assembly. This measurement of 0.677 of an inch is taken from the case to the top of the planetary. The planetary hub should only protrude 0.677 of an inch from the face of the transfer case. Caution should be taken to make sure the brass synchro ring is properly seated before mating these units together. The 3 synchro dogs must interlock with the brass synchro ring. We have packed grease underneath the synchro ring to prevent it from falling out of position during assembly. If the synchro dogs do not line up properly, you will find a 1/4 inch gap between transfer case and overdrive housing when mounting. If this happens, do not force these components together. We have seen failure occur because of synchro ring misalignment. Now use the new gasket that was in your manual. Align the gasket to the rear of the transfer case with silicone and install the aluminum housing portion of the overdrive to your transfer case. Further precautions must be taken when installing your unit so that the planetary gears mesh properly. The overdrive unit may need to be rotated slightly to allow the gears to align correctly. The case is shipped with all bolts and washers in place. If the bolts and washers slip out of place, make sure the red bolt with the seal washer is in the red position on the case. Tighten the bolts with the lock washers to 30 foot-pounds torque. Then, turn the driveline by hand to check for free rotation. We are now at step 9 in your manual, where we install the shifter pivot mount and handle to the transmission case. At this point, you may now remove and discard the small tube and cotter pin on the shift rail. Then connect the shift lever rod to the Saturn shift rail. This installation guide was done using a Mitsubishi transfer case rather than a T90. The T90 single and dual lever shift kits come with 2 steel spacer washers to mount between the top cover and the shifter bracket. Using the new shift boot retainer plate as a pattern, mark and cut a new lever opening on your transmission floor plate that was removed earlier. Install this modified floor plate, then install the shift boot retainer plate and shift boot. Now is a good time to fill your transfer case with the proper lubrication. A high grade of gear oil, 75 to 90 weight, is recommended. We do not recommend the use of additives in the gear oil. The oil level in the transfer case must be maintained at proper levels to assure maximum overdrive durability. Step 12. Put the transfer case in neutral, the transmission in high gear, and the overdrive in the overdrive gear. Run the engine at fast idle for 7 to 10 minutes. This will circulate the oil through the overdrive unit. Stop the engine and recheck the oil level in the transfer case and refill if necessary. Make sure to take step 13 about 100 miles after the installation of the overdrive. Check and retighten the 5 bolts that hold the overdrive unit to the transfer case, 30 foot-pounds torque if necessary. Then recheck the transfer case oil level once again. Shifting the overdrive is done in the same manner as with a standard transmission, which is to release the throttle, depress the clutch pedal, and shift. On automatic applications, the transmission should be shifted into neutral. When the shift lever is in the forward position, the unit is engaged in overdrive. When the handle is shifted back towards the driver, the unit is in direct. The Saturn is designed mainly to be used as an overdrive. However, it can be used in any transmission gear, shifted in direct or overdrive. Caution: the unit should not be used in overdrive when towing or pulling a heavy load.